The balance of payment crisis. Now, in 1991 and just the years before 1991, India faced a huge macroeconomic imbalance. What basically happened is that India was not able to pay for its essential imports or services. So ideally, when you go ahead and you look at the balance of payment account, what do you observe? We say that the balance of payment account has a current account and a capital account. As you would remember from what we did as part of the macroeconomics international linkages chapter, you would remember that it is the capital account where we go ahead and pass an accommodating statement. And this accommodating statement is passed because of the deficit that you face in the current account. Sometimes the amount of deficit in the current account is so high. The imports are so much greater than the exports that a country is not able to take that much loan. And that's the time when you have to devalue your currency or your currency depreciates. This was a period of 1991 where there was a huge macroeconomic balance in the economy, where our country was not able to pay for the imports or the services that it was taking, even using the debt. This was also known as the currency crisis because the currency was depreciating. So let's go ahead and deep dive into what is balance of payment crisis. How did that happen in 1991? What were the causes of it? So as I mentioned to you that there was a huge macroeconomic imbalance in the economy. Now, there are two dual motives of any economy. One is to keep internal balance, and second is to keep external balance. Keeping an internal balance implies that you have to make sure that the government surplus is there. If not, then it is at least balanced. The budget is balanced. You don't have a budget deficit. The expenditure of the government is less than equal to the revenue of the government. External balance is when you have to ensure that the balance of payment account is balanced. You have to ensure that there is no deficit in your BOP, right? So you want to ensure that the government budget is balanced and the balance of payment or the external accounts are balanced. Both of them are highly interlinked, mind you. But now in 1991, what happened is that you had a high current account deficit, which means your imports were very high as compared to your exports. At the same time, you had a high fiscal deficit also, which means that the expenditure of the government was much more than the revenue of the government. The crisis did not develop overnight. It was caused by decades of imprudence. There was reliance on populist measures. The causes of balance of payment crisis are as follows. Let's go ahead and deep dive into it. So the first one is that the government expenditure was more than the earning. So as I told you that there was high fiscal deficit, government was spending more, it was earning less, so the fiscal deficit was high. See, whenever the government spends more than it has to then take loans. Not only from the internal economy, but it has to also take loans from the external economy. When the government takes loans for its own expenditure, for its own spending, then the government will not get additional loans to balance the current account. So then the current account starts facing some problems, because when my imports are more than my exports, then I have to fund these imports using some loans. I have to take some loans. But here is another reason why I am taking loan currently. That is because the government expenditure is very high. It's more than the revenue of the government. So the gross fiscal deficit rose from 9% of GDP to 12.7% of GDP. So that percent of, if I measure it as a percentage of GDP, earlier deficit was 9% and now the deficit was 12% of GDP. Second, the internal debt of government rose due to the above reason. It rose from 35% of GDP to 53%. So as I told you, whenever the expenditure of the government is more than the revenue of the government has to take loans to fund the spending. In order to take loan, it can either take loan internally or it can take loan externally. In this case, the internal debt of the government also increased from 35% to 53%. Third, in addition, the country was importing more than exporting. So, as I told you that there was also high current account deficit. The country kept on importing more than it was exporting. So, the current account deficit was high. The current account deficit was triggered by rise in crude oil prices because of the Gulf War. Now, see, whenever we talk about imports, we always talk about the value of imports. Value of import is always price into quantity. So whenever we say that imports increase, it can happen either because the price of the goods that you import have increased, or it can happen that the quantity that you are importing has increased, or both, right? So one reason why our imports were increasing was because we understood that there was a rise in the price of the crude oil. And because its price was increasing, the amount that you were spending on importing oil was also increasing, because of which the foreign exchange reserves of India were depleting. Despite substantial borrowing from IMF earlier in the year. So, whenever you have to do imports, you have to use your reserves. Now, if you're doing heavy imports, you are heavily depleting your reserves. So this is what happened in this case, that your reserves started depleting. By June 1991, India had less than 1 billion foreign reserves, just sufficient to meet import requirement for a period of 3 weeks. So in June 2009, June 1991, the amount of reserves were only sufficient to meet the requirement of next 3 weeks of imports. Further, if the country wanted to do any imports, it did not have any more reserves of foreign. It did not have any more foreign reserves. So it did not have foreign exchange to conduct business with the rest of the world. It was not able to repay its loan to IMF. It started defaulting that. It was not able to repay its loan to the other international countries, other international organizations. And because of the situation that existed in India, the investors started pulling out their money. Nobody wanted to invest in India. They wanted to take out money from India. So there was capital outflow. Remember, capital outflow means your capital account is also going in a deficit. So there was capital outflow that happened because of the conflicts that were there within the country and because people were losing confidence in your country. Short-term credit dried up as exporters were apprehensive that they would not be paid. So nobody was going ahead and giving you short-term loans, and there was a massive rise in the inflation rates. Why? Because when you are not able to get imports from the rest of the world, then you have to just rely on your country's products, which may be produced at a high price. There is not enough competition in your country. That is another reason of inflation. Additionally, just imagine this thing. See, when I talk about supply, there can be various sources of supply, right? So supposedly my supply is coming from the imports that we are doing, supply is coming from internally produced product. So these are the two main sources of supply. It can either be internally produced or it can be bought from outside. Now imagine if you cannot buy from outside. This is the supply, this is the demand. When you cannot buy from outside, all of a sudden your supply has decreased. If your supply has decreased, this automatically means that the amount of product in the market will decrease and the price of the product in the market will increase. So this meant that the price of the product started increasing, and hence there was massive inflation in the economy. All these things, high fiscal deficit, high current account deficit, capital outflows, nobody giving you loan, you're defaulting on loan, all this was known as the balance of payment crisis. So this came to be known as the balance of payment crisis. Now, what were the effects of the balance of payment crisis? So one thing that you have to understand is, because you didn't have money, the imports were restricted. Secondly, the price of fuels were raising, of course, because the oil price was very high. Bank rates were raised because nobody was giving you loan. So imagine a person who defaults a lot on loan. You will only get loan at a very high rate because, people don't have faith in you. So they will give you loan at a very, very high rate. So the bank's rate were raised. Government had to cut its spending because to fund its spending, it wanted loans, it wanted money, and it wasn't getting any external loans. So it had to cut down on its expenditure. On the expenditure it was doing on education, health, etc. It had to cut down that. India had to secure an emergency loan of 2.2 billion from IMF by pledging 67 tons of gold as collateral security. In May 1991, India sent 20 tons of gold to Union Bank of Switzerland, Zurich, and in July, 47 tons were given to Bank of England to raise a total of $600 million. So it had to keep gold as collateral in order to get money for its foreign exchange reserves that could be used to go ahead and get import of the essential commodities. Now, having looked at this situation, in 1991, the government of India, which was led by Narasimha Rao, along with Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the finance minister, they initiated a 4-pronged strategy. So ideally, this strategy, which I will be shortly showing you, this 1991 reform were known as LPG: liberalization, privatization, globalization. You free your economy, you open it for the rest of the world, you go ahead and you privatize your economy, reduce the role of the public sector, and you globalize your economy. So we would be looking at these 3 things shortly. Now, let's go ahead and say what are the 4 prolonged strategies that were introduced. So the first prolonged strategy was known as the industrial policy reform. Industrial policy reform were basically related to the licensing system. So earlier, it was not the case that anybody could go ahead and could open an industry, could open a factory. You had to require a complete license to kind of open that. The ease of doing business in India was very low. It wasn't easy. You had to get a license, and to get that license, there was a huge line of bribery system that had to be followed. You had to give bribe from the lower level to the high level. However, During this period of 1991, this licensing system was abolished. So License Raj and Inspector Raj were removed. Industrial licensing was abolished. Measures were taken to ease domestic supply constraints and to increase the investment. So we now made measures to make business easy for everyone. We now made reforms to ensure that people could easily enter into the business, could easily enter into, getting their own factories. We wanted to ensure that the licensing system was no more there, anybody could enter it, and that it was easy enough to go ahead and do business. Second, trade policy reforms. So under the trade policy reform, two important things came in our economy. The first was to make exports competitive. Rupee was devalued by 20%. So just remember this thing, that whenever you devalue your currency, again, we did this as part of international economics. Whenever you devalue your currency, your products become cheaper. And when your products become cheaper, then the demand of your products increases internationally. And this automatically means that the exports start increasing. So in order to increase the exports in the economy, rupee was devalued. Licensing controls and regulation on exports were eased. So, earlier it wasn't very easy to export products outside India. To sell outside India, you had to have proper certificates, proper licenses. Not everybody could just send their product outside India, but that was also relaxed. And now we could easily, it was much easier to export goods outside India. Public sector reforms. So as I told you, there was liberalization. Now we had foreign direct investment, which means people outside India were easily allowed to invest in India. FDIs were promoted, and public sector companies were given more operational freedom to scale up and make bigger contribution to the economy. Fiscal correction. So actually, with time, this thing was further increased. See, a lot of times, initially, what the government did was it wanted to kind of help the people in India to set up their business. So in that sense, what was done was that the subsidies were given for exports. People who wanted to sell their product outside India, they were encouraged by giving subsidies, and there was tariff that was charged on imports, so that imports became expensive. Government charged taxes on the goods produced from outside India. Now, this meant that when you give subsidies, you are going ahead and you're spending money as a government. Again, one reason which is causing deficit. So in order to remove that deficit, and in order to ensure that the deficit of the government is low, one fiscal correction that was done was to go ahead and abolish the subsidies that were given on exports. So the subsidies given on exports were abolished. The year 1991, India saw unprecedented financial crisis. The crisis was triggered by a major balance of payment situation. The crisis was converted into a golden opportunity to reform country's economic situation and make up and introduce fundamental changes in the economic policy. The government brought in some structural reforms and stabilization policies. Okay, so what did the government do? The government went ahead and it removed the rigidities that were existing in our economy. It corrected the weakness that was there in our economy, and it aimed to improve the fiscal and the BOP fronts. So both internal and external sector. So basically, India's Prime Minister introduced a policy called New Economic Policy along with the finance minister. So it was introduced by P.V. Narasimha Rao and finance minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. The new economic policy is nothing but the economic policy that was brought to meet or to beat this BOP crisis. Now, what are the objectives of the new economic policy? One, enter into the field of globalization and make economy more market oriented. So see what had happened. When India had just got its freedom, India wanted to basically safeguard its domestic economy. So it wanted to safeguard the people, it wanted to kind of safeguard those industries and, enable people to be self-sufficient and, wanted to kind of make sure that they have, the people who are domestically are able to produce for the economy and don't get any competition from the rest of the world. So ideally, we have something which is known as infant industry or infant companies or infant factories. Now, these are those which are just newly born. Okay. So when India just got its independence, if we would have made India an open economy, it would have got a lot of competition. In order to avoid this competition, we wanted to make sure that we were globalized enough, right? That we were not globalized enough. Sorry. We wanted to make sure that we were a closed economy. We didn't have competition from the rest of the world. But now, after coming from 1947 till 1991, when we were always protecting our country and not making it enough open for the rest of the world, in 1991, we went ahead and we globalized it and we made the economy more market oriented. This also meant reducing the inflation rate and rectifying imbalances in the payment. Increase the growth rate of the economy, create enough foreign exchange reserves, because now you're making your economy more open. Stabilize the economy and convert economy into a market economy by removal of unwanted restriction. No license system, no subsidies on the exports, make them competitive enough, just remove the restrictions. Allow international flow of good, capital, service, technology, human resources without restrictions. Enhance the participation of private players in all sectors of the economy. So earlier, a lot of things were restricted to the public sector. We were we were oriented enough that everything had to be under control of the public sector. Like, for example, the telecommunication sector, like, for example, there are still things which are under the public sector, like railways. But back in the era before 1991, we had much more public sector. Now we wanted to privatize things. We wanted to reduce the role of the public sector, remove those public sector companies which were not performing well, right, which were inefficient. So for this, the reserve sector of government were reduced to just 3. Now, steps undertaken in the new economic reforms of 1991. The branches of the new economic reforms were threefold: liberalization, privatization, globalization, called LPG policies. The government sought to open up Indian economy through these measures and gear India from a Soviet model economy to a market economy. See, this is what I told you in my 5-year plan lecture also, that initially India was based on a Soviet model. And now we wanted to shift towards a market economy. Now, steps undertaken under liberalization. So first, commercial banks were given the freedom to determine interest rate. Earlier, only RBI used to determine the interest rate. But now commercial banks were given the freedom to decide the interest rate. The investment limit for small scale industries was raised to 1 crore. So till 1 crore investment, you would be counted under the small scale industry. Indian industries were given freedom to import capital goods like machinery, raw material from foreign countries. So earlier, as I told you, the aim was to make India self-sufficient. So you weren't allowing the industries to take capital goods like machineries from outside, but now you were giving the freedom to import the goods from outside also. Previously, the government used to fix maximum production capacity of industries. Now, the industries could diversify their production capacities and reduce production costs. Industries are now free to decide this based on market requirement. So earlier, the government said that this is the maximum amount that you can produce as a particular factory or as a particular industry, and you cannot exceed the production more than this amount. Now, when the government puts a restriction on how much you can produce, this implies that you cannot make use of the economies of scale. What is economies of scale? Economies of scale is basically when you go ahead and you produce in heavy amount, thereby reducing the cost per unit. Your cost per unit is reducing. So you use your machinery to produce a lot, reducing the cost per unit. But now what we are saying is that we are going ahead and are not putting any limit on what you want to produce. You can increase your production. When you can produce unlimited, this means that you can go ahead and diversify your capacities and hence reduce production cost. So industries are now free to decide this based on market requirement. Abolition of restrictive trade practices. Now, earlier, we had a trade practice which was called as the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practice Act. This was removed, and we had the coming up of the Competition Act. I'll just tell you in just what this meant. The aim was to go ahead and ensure that we do not have monopolies that are being created, that firms do not come together, and that firms do not form a monopoly, do not follow restrictive trade. What is restrictive trade? That firms do not restrict the supply of goods, thereby increasing the price of the goods. When supply is limited, price will automatically increase. So the aim was not to restrict the supply, not to ensure that monopolies are not being formed, and to ensure that you have enough competition in the market. Okay, so earlier we had MRTP Act, and then we had the Competition Act that came. So the Competition Act basically came in 2002, and the aim of the Competition Act was to go ahead and ensure that the competition policies are met, to make sure that nobody follows any anti-competitive practice, to make sure that people do not restrict the amount of supply, thereby increasing the price. This does not take place. So imagine this. Imagine, suppose the two important companies, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, supposedly they come into restrictive practice. They restrict the amount of supply, thereby increasing the price of the cold drink. Then that is an anti-competitive practice. So the aim was that this should not take place under the liberalization policies. Industrial licensing and registration were removed. So the license system was removed. Private sector is free to start new venture of business without obtaining license, except for the following sector. These are the sectors that still require license: cigarette, liquor, industrial explosives, defense equipment, hazardous chemicals, and drugs. Otherwise, you are free to start any new venture. Steps taken under privatization. So what is privatization? Where you reduce the role of the public sector and increase the role of the private sector. Privatization refers to opening up the private sector to industries that were previously reserved for the government sector. So earlier things which were only under the control of government sector now will see the coming up of the private sector also. This chiefly involves selling public sector undertakings to private players. This was meant to remove political interference and actually to reduce the bribery system to increase the efficiency. And what were the steps that were undertaken? First, selling shares of public sector undertaking to public and financial institution. So for example, Maruti Udyog Limited were sold to private parties. Second, disinvestment in public sector undertaking. See, we had public sector which were non-performing, which means that they were either going in loss or were at the verge of closing. So we either, whichever were going in loss, we either gave some share to the private sector or we simply closed some public sectors. So two things were followed. You closed the public sectors which could not be revamped, public companies, and you privatized the public companies which could be revamped in order to increase the efficiency of the private sector. Efficiency of public-private sector. The number of industries that were reserved for public sector were decreased from 17 to 3. These were transport and railway, atomic energy, mining of atomic minerals. Steps undertaken under globalization. What is globalization? Globalization is opening the economy towards foreign investment and global trade. So you're allowing better export import and you're also allowing FDIs, foreign direct investment. Now let's see what was undertaken under globalization. First, reduction in tariff. So the aim was to go ahead and to reduce the taxes, the tariffs that were charged on goods that came from outside India. So reduce custom duties and tariffs on export and import to make India attractive to the global investment. Second, long-term trade policy. Trade policy was enforced for long duration. The main features of trade policy were liberal policy, encouragement of open competition, controls on foreign trade were removed. So no more controls. You could sell outside India. Whatever was coming from outside India, there were lesser taxes on those so that people will buy products from outside India, and so that you show that India is an attractive place to invest. Before 1991, import to India were regulated by a positive list of freely importable items. From 1992 onward, the list was replaced by a limited negative list. So ideally what used to happen is, before 1991, out of all the products that were imported, you only had few products on which there was no tariff. On rest, everything else there was tariff. After 1991, on all the goods that were imported, there were few products on which there was tariff. On all the remaining products, there was no tariff. So the tariff products were called the negative list. Only few products had tariff. And earlier, only few products didn't have tariff. That was called the positive list. Tariff on the goods imported. Okay. almost all intermediate and capital goods were freed from the list of import restrictions. The Indian currency was made partially convertible. Equity limit of foreign capital investment was raised from 40% to 100%. Very important. You could completely have a company which was foreign invested. The stake of the foreign holders could have been 100% now. So the Foreign Exchange Management Act was enacted, replacing draconian Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. So now you could have companies in India which were 100% foreign oriented. The economic reforms of 1991 led to a widespread economic development in the country. Many sectors such as civil aviation, telecom saw great leaps from deregulation and surged ahead. India is also home to many startups and mushrooming business because of the end of license Raj. The process is, however, far from complete and many areas would still need some improvement.